The ballroom doors burst open, and 30 women rushed forward the moment the Duke of Ashcombe stepped into the light. Every eye in the room fixed on him, every voice dropped to a whisper, every fan snapped shut in nervous anticipation. Nathaniel Ashcombe stood at the center of it all, his jaw tight, his eyes scanning the crowd with quiet exhaustion. He had 1 week to choose a bride, and the pressure of that choice pressed down on his chest like a stone. His mother's illness had made the decision urgent. A doctor's warning had turned a family tradition into a race against time. One by one, the women approached him. Charlotte Bellamy recited poetry she had clearly memorized only that morning. Isabella Grant spoke of her father's fortune before she even said her own name. Another woman laughed too loudly at a joke he had not made. Nathaniel nodded politely, answered briefly, and felt nothing. Each conversation blurred into the last, a parade of practiced smiles and rehearsed compliments. He had heard it all before, in different voices, at different balls in different years. The sameness of it exhausted him more than the pressure itself. Near the edge of the room, away from the crush of silk gowns and desperate ambition, a young woman named Eleanor Whitmore stood with her arms crossed, clearly wishing she were anywhere else. Her Aunt Margaret had insisted she attend, whispering promises of security and comfort if only she would smile at the right man. Eleanor had no interest in performing. She had spent the evening counting the minutes until she could politely leave. Word spread through the crowd that the Duke was growing impatient. Whispers turned into open panic among the remaining women waiting their turn. Somewhere near the refreshment table, a glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered against the marble floor. In the sudden commotion, Nathaniel stepped back instinctively, and his shoulder collided with someone he had not seen standing behind him. He turned, expecting another eager face, another rehearsed introduction. Instead, he found Eleanor, startled but unbothered, brushing a small splash of punch from her sleeve without any trace of alarm. She looked up at him, not with wonder or calculation, but with mild irritation at the mess. "You might want to warn a person before turning like that," she said, her voice steady, almost amused. Nathaniel blinked, caught off guard. No apology, no flattery, no attempt to charm him. Just a simple, honest reaction. For the first time all evening, something in his chest loosened just slightly. He opened his mouth to respond, unsure whether to laugh or apologize, when the sound of his name being called out across the room reminded him that 30 pairs of eyes were still watching, waiting, hopping to be next. He glanced back at Eleanor once more before duty pulled him away, a strange curiosity already forming, one he could not yet explain, and one that would follow him long after the ballroom lights dimmed for the night. Eleanor did not yet know she had just spoken to the Duke of Ashcombe. She only knew that, for once, a conversation at this insufferable event had felt completely real. The following morning, Eleanor sat in the small garden behind her aunt's townhouse, grateful for the silence after the noise of the previous night. She had almost forgotten the brief encounter with the stranger near the refreshment table until a carriage bearing an unfamiliar crest stopped outside the gate. A footman delivered a folded note, requesting her presence for a walk in the public gardens that afternoon, signed simply with the initial N. Confused but curious, Eleanor agreed, assuming the invitation came from a distant acquaintance of her aunt's. When she arrived at the gardens, she recognized him immediately, the same broad shoulders, the same tired eyes from the night before. It was only when a passing couple bowed deeply and addressed him as "Your Grace" that the truth settled over her like a sudden chill. The stranger she had scolded over spilled punch was the Duke himself. Her cheeks flushed, and she began to stammer an apology, but Nathaniel raised a hand and shook his head. He admitted, with unexpected honesty, that her lack of formality had been the most refreshing moment of his entire evening. He explained that he had spent the night listening to compliments that meant nothing, spoken by women who barely looked at him as a person. Her irritation, however small, had felt more genuine than every kind word combined. They walked together along a quiet path lined with autumn leaves, and Eleanor found herself speaking without the careful filter she usually applied around people of high standing. She told him about her family's modest circumstances, about her aunt's determination to see her married well, and about her own quiet resentment of being treated like a prize to be won rather than a person with thoughts of her own. Nathaniel listened closely, more closely than he had listened to anyone in years. He asked questions instead of offering flattery. He wanted to understand her reasoning, not simply admire her appearance. When she criticized the entire system of courtship he represented, calling it a performance dressed up as romance, he did not take offense. Instead, he laughed, a real laugh, the first one Alina had heard from him. As the afternoon stretched on, Nathaniel confessed that he had not yet decided whom to choose among the 30 women he had met the night before. He admitted that none of them had left an impression beyond their titles and their practiced words. Alina pointed out, without hesitation, that perhaps the problem was not with the women, but with a system that rewarded performance over honesty. Her words struck him deeply, though he did not yet respond. Instead, he asked if he might walk with her again the following day. Alina hesitated, aware of the risk in growing close to a man whose choice could shape her family's future, yet something about his sincerity made refusal impossible. As they parted ways at the garden gate, neither of them noticed a carriage slowing nearby, nor the sharp eyes of Charlotte Bellamy watching from within it, taking careful note of exactly how long the Duke had spent in Alina's company. Over the following days, Nathaniel and Alina met again and again, each conversation peeling back another layer of formality between them. He learned that she read philosophy late into the night, that she disliked pretending to enjoy music she found dull, and that she had turned down 2 previous marriage proposals because neither man had asked what she actually wanted from life. She learned that he had inherited his title far younger than expected, that he carried the weight of his family's expectations like an invisible chain, and that he had never once been asked a genuine question by any of the women pursuing him, until her. Word of their growing closeness spread quickly through the social circles of the city. The remaining women who had once competed for his attention grew anxious, then desperate, then resentful. Charlotte Bellamy, in particular, could not accept that a woman with no fortune and no notable family name had captured the attention that dozens of far more polished women had failed to secure. During a formal dinner hosted by Nathaniel's family, Alina was invited as a guest for the first time. She wore a simple gown, far less elaborate than the gowns worn by the other women present, yet she carried herself with quiet confidence rather than nervous energy. When another guest asked her opinion on a recent political matter, she answered honestly instead of deferring politely, drawing a mixture of surprise and quiet respect from those listening. Nathaniel watched from across the table, noticing how effortlessly she engaged with people, not through charm, but through genuine interest and honest opinion. He found himself comparing her instinctively to the other women he had met, and every comparison only strengthened his growing certainty about where his feelings were leading him. After dinner, as guests mingled in smaller groups, Charlotte approached Alina directly, her tone polite on the surface but sharp underneath. She questioned Alina's intentions, suggesting that her plain honesty was simply a clever strategy designed to appear different from the other suitors. Alina remained calm, replying only that she had never once tried to appear anything other than herself, and that she found the accusation more revealing of Charlotte's own approach than her own. The exchange did not go unnoticed. Nathaniel, standing nearby, overheard enough of the conversation to understand the tension building around Alina. Rather than intervene immediately, he chose to observe, wanting to see how she would handle the pressure without his protection. Alina excused herself gracefully, neither flustered nor defeated, and rejoined a group discussing literature, leaving Charlotte standing alone with her accusation unanswered. Later that evening, as guests began departing, Nathaniel found a private moment to speak with Alina near the entrance hall. He admitted that he had overheard the confrontation and praised her composure. Alina, however, admitted quietly that the encounter had shaken her more than she wanted to show. She confessed her fear that no matter how honestly she behaved, others would always assume she had some hidden motive, simply because she came from modest means. Nathaniel wanted to reassure her immediately, but hesitated, aware that his own uncertainty about the future still lingered beneath the surface of his growing affection. In the days that followed, rumors about Alina spread through the social circles with increasing speed. Some whispered that she had orchestrated the entire encounter with the Duke from the very beginning, staging her irritation at the ball to appear different from the other women. Others claimed her aunt had planned the accidental meeting near the refreshment table with calculated precision. The more the rumors circulated, the more distorted the truth became, until Alina barely recognized the version of herself being described by strangers. Nathaniel heard the rumors as well, and despite his growing feelings for Alina, a seed of doubt took root in his mind. He had been deceived before by charming words that turned out to be empty performances, and the fear of being deceived again gnawed at him quietly. When he next met Alina, his usual warmth was replaced by a guarded distance she immediately noticed but could not fully explain. Confused and hurt, Alina asked him directly if something had changed between them. Nathaniel, struggling to voice his uncertainty, admitted that he had heard troubling rumors and needed time to think clearly. Alina felt a sharp sting of betrayal, not because he had doubts, but because he had allowed gossip to outweigh the honesty she had shown him from their very first conversation. She left their meeting that day without argument, quietly resolving to withdraw from his company entirely. She informed her aunt that she wished to end her involvement in the courtship altogether, insisting that she would rather live a modest, ordinary life than continue being judged and doubted despite doing nothing but speak the truth. Margaret protested, reminding Alina of the financial security such a match could provide, but Alina remained firm. She explained that a marriage built on suspicion, however small, would never bring genuine happiness, regardless of wealth or title. Meanwhile, Nathaniel found himself unable to concentrate on anything beyond his uncertainty. He revisited every conversation he had shared with Alina, searching for any sign of deception, and found none. Every memory only reinforced how different she had been from every other woman he had met, how her honesty had never once wavered, even when it clearly cost her socially. Determined to understand the truth behind the rumors, Nathaniel began quietly investigating their origin. Through careful inquiry, he discovered that Charlotte Bellamy had been the source of most of the false claims, spreading exaggerated stories out of jealousy and desperation to secure his attention for herself. Realizing his mistake, Nathaniel felt a wave of regret for allowing doubt to overshadow the trust Alina had earned through genuine honesty. He resolved immediately to correct the situation, understanding that if he waited any longer, he risked losing the one connection that had ever felt completely real. A grand gathering was arranged to formally announce the Duke's decision, drawing all 30 original women, along with members of high society eager to witness the outcome. Alina, having withdrawn from the courtship entirely, had no intention of attending, believing the matter fully settled in her mind. However, her aunt convinced her to attend one final time, if only to preserve appearances and avoid unnecessary embarrassment. As the evening began, whispers filled the room, most assuming Nathaniel would choose a woman of proper status and unquestionable reputation. Charlotte stood near the front, confident that her efforts to discredit Alina had cleared her path toward becoming the Duke's chosen bride. When Nathaniel finally addressed the room, his tone carried none of the practiced formality expected of such an announcement. Instead, he spoke openly about his exhaustion with performances, flattery, and calculated charm. He admitted that only one person throughout the entire process had spoken to him without pretense, without strategy, and without concern for how her words might benefit her socially. He turned directly toward Alina. Acknowledging the doubt he had allowed to grow between them and publicly apologizing for letting rumors overshadow her honesty. He explained, in clear and simple words, that Charlotte had fabricated the claims out of jealousy, and that the truth had been in front of him the entire time. Gasps spread through the crowd as Charlotte's composure cracked under the sudden attention. Eleanor, stunned by his public honesty, felt her earlier hurt begin to soften, though uncertainty still lingered within her. Nathaniel crossed the room toward her, ignoring the murmurs surrounding them, and asked, without any rehearsed elegance, whether she would consider giving him another chance, not because of duty or title, but because he genuinely valued the honesty she had shown him from their very first meeting. Eleanor studied his expression carefully, searching for any trace of performance, and found none. She admitted that she still feared judgment from society, but realized that living truthfully mattered more to her than avoiding criticism. With quiet sincerity, she accepted his apology and agreed to continue their courtship, this time without secrecy or doubt shadowing their conversations. The room, still buzzing with surprise, slowly began to understand that the Duke had chosen not the most polished woman among the 30, but the one who had never once tried to impress him at all. In the months that followed, their relationship grew steadily, built on honest conversation rather than performance. Eleanor never abandoned her direct nature, and Nathaniel never asked her to. Together, they proved that genuine connection required nothing more than the simple courage to speak the truth.